Brussels is raising the stakes in its response to the Gaza war. For the first time, the European Commission is moving to suspend part of its trade deal with Israel, while also unveiling plans to sanction Hamas, hardline figures in the Israeli government, as well as extremist settlers. The measures still need to be approved by member states and will likely face an uphill battle to be adopted. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas framed her plans as an attempt to ease the humanitarian crisis in the Palestinian territories, not to punish Israel.
Israeli government's push into Gaza City is a new escalation of the war and will further deepen the humanitarian crisis. Today, I presented a robust package of sanctions of Hamas terrorists, extremist ministers in the Israeli government, and violent settlers and entities supporting the impunity going on in the West Bank. The Commission adopted a proposal to partially suspend trade concessions, and I want to be very clear. The aim is not to punish Israel. The aim is to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. All member states agree that the situation in Gaza is untenable. The war needs to end.
René Wildangel is a journalist and historian with a focus on the Middle East and joins me now. Welcome to DW. I want to start by getting your reaction to today's announcement. How big a shift is this move by the Commission compared to the EU's past approach to Israel?
Well, I think it's a considerable shift. We have seen a review of the EU association agreement with Israel since May. And traditionally, the European Union has been very reluctant to introduce measures against this Israeli government, despite the horrific situation on the ground in Gaza that we've seen in the past 2 years. Despite the conduct of this Israeli government, it has been very slow to introduce measures. So it is a significant step because now we have a concrete suggestion by the Commission, and that's a suggestion on 3 levels. It's a suggestion of sanctions, it's a partial freeze of the association agreement, and it's also bilateral financial support that the European Commission now wants to withhold. So it's something concrete, and the EU is coming from words to action finally.
And to justify this action, the EU is invoking Article 2 of the association agreement. Can you quickly break down for us what exactly that means and if that's ever happened before?
Well, it's the human rights clause. So it basically says if one of the two parties contradicts the agreement in terms of human rights, of international law, then either party is allowed to suspend the agreement or the parts of the agreement. And yes, this has happened before in relations of the European Union with African states. It has happened when the EU suspended the cooperation agreement with Syria, when Bashar al-Assad started his brutal war against his own population in 2011. So it's not unprecedented. But as I said, the EU has been very reluctant to introduce measures against this Israeli government, despite the horrific situation that we've seen on the ground. So it's not unprecedented, but in terms of Israel, it's a first. And it's, I would say, a very significant step.
A significant step, but for now, it's just a proposal. How likely do you think it is that member states will back this, that these tariffs and sanctions will become a reality?
Well, that's the big question now. And as I said, it's 3 different levels. So there is a part that the EU Commission can already decide on. That's the direct support that the Commission pays to Israel. This will be withheld. So there is already a direct outcome here. But then there are the 2 other levels. That's sanctions against members of this Israeli government and against Hamas, by the way. This needs unified support by member states. And then we have the partial suspension of the association agreement. And we need a qualified majority here. So it will probably be a difficult debate. Again, we have seen the meeting in Copenhagen about 2 weeks ago, where divisions were clear, and it has been mostly 3 or 4 states who have been very reluctant. It's usually Hungary, it's the Czech Republic, and then the big factor is Germany. The German government has not officially reacted, has not finally cast its decision, but it has always been reluctant. And it's the big question mark now, because both for the unified vote or for the qualified majority, Germany is needed, would be needed to get this through.
How do you expect Germany to position itself?
Well, I have to say, if I look at the past positions, Germany, again, has been very reluctant, very slow to introduce measures. But the German government has also lost its patience with this Israeli government, specifically looking at the military action in Gaza, which is now described as a genocide by most major human rights organizations, looking at the West Bank, the horrific settler violence. German Foreign Minister Wadefuhl was in Israel several times, and it was clear that Germany has also lost its patience. And this is why Chancellor Merz about a month ago introduced a partial suspension of German arms to Israel. There was also a significant step, but it was followed by protest and divisions within the Christian Democratic Party, Chancellor Merz's party. And after that, he made pretty clear that Germany is not prepared to take additional measures. So again, that's the big question mark. Will Germany be ready here, or will it continue its traditional stance to be very, very reluctant when it comes to concrete sanctions against Israel?
Germany is, of course, Israel's staunchest supporter in the EU. How important would it be for Berlin to get on board, to ramp up pressure on Israel?
Well, I think, again, it's very important because we're talking about a qualified majority and a unified vote. So Germany is needed to get something through. And again, we're talking about something that is documented, a long list of human rights violations of this concrete Israeli government. We're not also talking so much about sanctions about a whole country, but we're talking about a government that concretely violates this agreement, and the EU did a review on its own, and the list of human rights violations is long. So Germany needs to decide now, is it more about domestic policies, or is it ready finally to have a real impact as the president of the Commission, von der Leyen, said last week, this must stop. We can no longer watch this horrific situation on the ground. So is Germany ready here? Again, we have not seen a final answer yet.
Yeah, and Kaja Kallas today said that if Germany were indeed to block the proposed measures, she wanted them to bring alternatives to the table. That was René Wildangel, journalist and historian. Pleasure speaking to you today.
Thank you.